So we're gonna delve into the nutrient tracking tool next. Dr. Ali Saleh from Texas Institute for Applied Environmental Research is going to get us started where the nutrient tracking tool came from and where it's going. So Ali.
Thank you. Good afternoon all. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks for inviting me to come back. And it's always great to come back to Ohio, great state of Ohio. Today we're going to talk about this NTT program that most of you know about, and there has been issues and working together with Kevin, with Rem, and the rest of the group for a couple of years. So I'll be talking about a little bit about the program itself, and I have run some scenarios. And I think Rem, after me, he's going to talk about some of the calibration using Kevin's group data. And looks good. Everything looks much better than the day we started. So we have also a new version of this coming up. So it's going to be like a shopping cart, going to grocery store and pick up the merchandise you want, like cropping and so on, and facilitate a lot more. So we will be with you as this new program comes. You will be part of the group, part of the club membership. You're going to get access to those as we go. So how do I change this? Just go like this. Well, I want to also talk about my group. This is just 3 of us, but I think it's going to be hundreds of people that have helped to put this together through the suggestions and ideas. So I will always like to give credit to them. What is NTT? Where is the history of this? NTT is actually used to be called nitrogen trading tool, which was just one-dimensional model. It was not doing what they wanted to do in NRCS. So NRCS invited me to modify this to get more comprehensive. So what I did, I explained to you what I have done, but let's just talk about this itself. It's evaluate the economic, environmental impacts of the management practices at farm and a small watershed. And so what you do as your BMPs, whatever your management you put in the field, what's going to happen to the water quality, come out of water and quantity. And also we are trying to do economic impacts of those management practices. Is it free? It's internet-based. There's no GIS required, no royalty payment required. And you can run it anywhere you want around the world, as long as you have access to internet. And you can use the results of this for many things, including your personal farm management at your own farm. Even you don't want to do it for any programs, to see what is best for your farm to increase the productivity. That's what we emphasize a lot on this program at the same time as we pay attention to water quality and quantity. Is used as an interface for Apex, and now we're adding some more model, DNDC and other models that requires people want to use them to for evaluation of their management practices. Is the major part of this, entity has 3 phases. One is that collecting of the databases and make sure we are making those databases correct, because we all know garbage in, garbage out. So really the major part of the team at the attention to the databases, collecting them and making sure there's nothing wrong with them, and if the best of knowledge we have. Second part of the entity is simulation of the practices data that we collect and running the BMPs and simulation of those, which is done by Apex. And this is Dr. Jimmy Williams and his groups in Blackland Research Center. And Kevin used to be part of that, and he has contributed to this also. So we give the credit to that for the Apex. But this Apex that we have is an NTT, because I have 25 years of experience, 20 years with Jimmy Williams, and I did the forestry with him and so on. I go ahead and change the code, and we let them know what was the problem with the program itself. So when the new version of the Apex comes, we don't jump on it because it's new. We really evaluate it well before it goes in. And I have done quite a few routines that I still have to write paper on. And you will see one of them here. And for economic part of this, that we will be in the future version coming up soon, is going to be FEM, Farm Economic Model, that at this time, I'm not going to talk about it too much, but I mentioned a little bit. Is a transparency. We want everybody to be able to use NTT in the government, in Washington, in local, in your farm, with your family, in Africa, wherever you are. So there's nothing and anything information you want about it, we provide it to you to see where it comes from. So if you look at this one here, I don't know if I have this as a PowerPoint. So if you look at it, this is a new NTT comparing to old one. Now, if you have a farm and you divide it to different management, you want to have cattle, you want to have corn, soybean, whatever it is, it actually looks at it as a watershed. That's why I'm saying this is going to be becoming as a watershed model soon. Means that you can do some practices in different places, get your output from crop production to water quality and quantity in each of those edge of all of those little fields, and then you see also the results at the whole farm. And looking at the current application, we are actually next week, there's an NTT version of this called CBNTT. In our location, also with the Chesapeake Bay, and they're going to release this next week for trading program, which is the heart of it is the same as what we have as NTT, but some differences there. But also is this program for them. And also, you have also written for them a registry program for different states, 6 states there, that they can trade. So we also do a lot of those programming for them also. But the other states, we are doing some with Oklahoma State University, and Kansas State University, 2 ARS, Nobel Foundation, and that we are looking at to see the life cycle analysis and also the crop cattle production under the drought. And also because it's NTT used there, is also going to be dealing with the crop production under drought. So all of this information I'm providing to you from different sources that we get inputs and funding, you will be accessing it as development comes, and you don't have to wait for a CD. As soon as it's up, we will just let you know in a second later you can have access to the internet. So I just try and say this is a good investment that this project is doing here. Science. We use the late version of the Apex. Again, we have included some routines, fixed them, and we let the Jimmy Williams know. Again, Apex is a wonderful program if you use it correctly. And if you do misuse the program, this is awful. So therefore, we are very careful with the, I ask a lot of questions from this area to make sure we're using it right. So some of the functionality in Apex is just very unique. Is everything, about 95% of the Apex is done on a physical based. So the farmer A, although it's a neighbor to farmer B, it completely different results because all the characteristics from soil to management is all been respected. So that's what the physical based model is. It's not original, it's just one number, 30% cover crop reduction, nitrogen apply in this watershed or sub-watershed. Every farm is different. Erosion has the water and wind erosion. There is about 4 or 5 types of erosion, including Russell 2 that is in uses for erosion calculation. There is a Sentry model, carbon in this, that you can get how much carbon you can sell in the market if you do this management or that. One of the big unique things about Apex is that crop growth. In the typical model, let's say in SWOT, I guess they're catching up, is that if you use the crop, in one crop you have to kill the other one to come up. So you cannot have 2. But in this model, you can have 10 crops growing at the same time. So that's a very significant for tropical, when they have multiple cropping growing and they all fight for this nutrients and this light and so on. And manure management is a very significant part of this that we haven't even got to the animal management here. The Apex was designed for that. Tier is the one that funded Jimmy Williams to make EPIC to become APEX, because EPIC was one-dimensional. And that routing factor that Jimmy added to it is what he wanted, because we have a lot of dairies in our location in Texas. Some of the practices that you currently can do in NTT, as you see it, it's a lot of those. We haven't even got there. I mean, the hard work that Kevin and his group and all of you doing in the field has to be rewarded. He cannot go from one field and go to another field for so expensive and so time consuming. That's why we want this. Our work is kind of reward of their hard work. We're going to put this information in this model, calibrate it, so you can go in a matter of waiting. Instead of waiting for 10 years to get results, you can do it in a 5 second, 10 second, 30 second to see what directional that management practice is going to do for you. And this is also going to go back and forth with Kevin's group and groups like Kevin's that says, okay, let me look at these BMPs that the model says is more significant, so I can concentrate on funding on those. So it's really kind of shake hand and collaboration between the modeling and the field people. And without them, we cannot calibrate this, so you can see how important. Databases, weather file. We have now created a 4 kilometers weather file grids from PRISM database. So we have over 800,000 stations in the United States, I think, at the minimum. So you will have more realistic weather file compared to where you are, your farm is, rather than have one for a county seat. Soil data. We actually have a soil survey data similar to what you have in NRCS in our location. The difference is in our location is Google Map is fast, and we go and check the weather, the soil databases, and we fix them. Means that, let's give you an example. In a soil survey, you download a farm, and then it says your organic matter is 99%, your bulk density is 0 on the top layer, and it was probably 1900s this data came in, and it could be a forest land. So what we have automated program, it looks at the second layer that not using as farm, and brings that second layer and replace the first layer, so become realistic. So that's the kind of one of the routine that goes through that. So our soil surveys is modified, a lot of those. The biggest difference that is in the soil survey, in our soil survey, is the slope. If you go to a soil, it says 0 to 20% is slope in this class, or 5 to 20, whatever. Where is your farm? Is it the 5%? Is it the 20%? So we go calculate based on DEM 10-meter resolution, and we give you 3 major slope for your farm. We give a lot of it, but we just use 3 of them. So you can get respect, because if you have a wrong slope, erosion goes bad, nutrient goes bad, your crop production goes bad, so everything is wrong. So this is a unique in NTT that calculate that for you for every farm until half an acre. It's a resolution. Economic data we are collecting the economic data for every county, but for different production, so which eventually is going to be in there. Model outputs under baseline and BMPs. You can do different pesticide, herbicide, sediment, and the crop yield to see what happens. We will show you a little bit of that results here today. What happens if I do this management or if I do that management? How about if I do cover crop? Kevin was talking about that. I'll show you that what he said was absolutely right. Upturns at the edge of the individual or combined. As I said, you could use it as a watershed or you could use it as a farm, as one field. So it's up to you. And now also graphic that you can even see the picture of your farm in this in NTT. If you have Google Map has one drive around, you can see your farm that you're going to buy. You could be sitting in London, England, and see what farm I want to buy in the US. You can see a picture of that. Besides getting information on soil characteristics. And PDF, you can get results of your information and put it for report in the PDF format. And the graphics is that you can get annual or monthly results, average monthly or annual results, the last 10 years of simulation when the weather was very fresh on the last 10 years. We also have modified the weather file up to 2016. So as it gets modified, we will modify it for you from this PRISM database. Interface, accessibility, fast. You can simulate 30 years in a matter of 20 seconds if you have fast internet. Easiest step to create and simulate programs. It's not that difficult to create. Again, because of complexity of the Apex program, we cannot just make it as a say hello that's going to do it for you. You have to put some inputs. You need to have some knowledge about the farm. You can put your own database. We have a management file for every county or every segment, I don't know what they call it, in NRCS, all this management they have for Russell, we have converted to Apex format, and we put the nutrient management based on the expected crop yield in every county. We have it, but I don't recommend using it because that's going to put you in isolation. You need to have your own innovative management. So this is the best way to do it. If somebody uses for research, like Kevin Group or REM, they can now use this because Apex is an interface for Apex, which is very difficult. Apex is a 30 years old Fortran program. It's very, very tough to, if one space causes problem, but this allows you to use it without any worry because we create those files for you automatically. You can upload your project and come back to it. That's the only time you can get access to your project. Once you turn off your computer, we delete your file. We don't want anything there because so many of them. Unless you save on your directory, then you can come back to it and run it again. Now there's two languages. This is one of the unique language. The model has the Spanish in it too. So because South America, we are applying it for Ecuador and Costa Rica, they are looking at. And Puerto Rico. I just came back from Puerto Rico. Now NTT can do plantain and banana there. So as expands, as we go along different places. But their one is Spanish too. So all the manuals and everything is Spanish. State and county, you can put your database as a state county if you don't want to be known who you are, where you are. You can go ahead in the Google map and the source survey side. You can go ahead and also do shapefile. You create a shapefile, you overload it, and it's going to bring the data for you based on your shapefile. You don't have to draw. Well, we talk about that. Talk about this. You can even put your address goes right in where you are. It's exactly like a Google map. Whatever you can do with the Google map, you can do this here too. Now, we are also adding a layer of land use to this. So when you go zoom into your land, it's going to tell you what cropping system is there. That's the future. Again, depending on the funding is and how many people I can hire, we have to do those. We love to do those. So if you go back into this, again, today, my half an hour, 40 minutes is not going to give me a chance to do all things. So I got some graphic. But you go there, you create a project, you're welcome, you have to create the password and the username, and that's all you have to use forever. And the project, you create a project, give a name and description. The next step is going to go and tell you, this is one option, the map, and then you just go ahead and put your address or zoom into these are counties in the United States. We have this model for every county in the United States and Puerto Rico right now, but we don't turn it on for every location. We want to make sure Kevin and Rim and others, the group says it makes sense before we just turn it on for them. So Ohio is one of those states on. So you select your interest to fill your farm, either by drawing or you can do by using the shapefile. Once you do that, you go ahead, the weather file automatically is going to show up the weather file. From what year to what year we have information, the weather. So you can select if you want to shorten up. The model always does 5 years warm up. If so, you select the years of simulation less than 5, automatically adds 5 to warm it up to make sure it comes to the equilibrium. But for Kevin and Rem, if they want to use this, they go ahead and they can use their own data file from the farm if they have the weather station and reads them in format that we will provide them in the help. That you have to create it that way and it reads it. And after that, you come to the soil and it says these are the soils that we have. We pick up 3 major soils for you. You can do maximum 3 right now. So you can turn one off and turn on and then show that if the soil is not correct, you can modify and add soil that you think is correct for your farm, because we don't trust soil survey always correct. But 90% is correct typically. So, and also you can go ahead and say, define the field. If it's picked up the wrong size, you can change the size. Now we added the forestry. We're working in the Department of Forestry to add forestry to this. So it can give you different land uses that are in forestry. So then you go to the soil information. This is where it becomes important because you have to put your soil P. Typically, you put it up to the 8-inch, 6-inch. You modify this, override this, and put your soil P. And typically, you don't want to put anything after that because you don't know. And as Kevin shows, and I saw the another presentation, most of the soil P is on the top layers. So that's what you want to do, most of it. Only way that can come to lower layer is we have tile system. After that you finish, you just go to the management and then you will have this management. We have a list of management farming practices that is happening in this area in Ohio, in Lake Erie. You select one of them and then you can modify as you want. And we have added some more typical, more of the fertilizer, commercial fertilizer, urea, you know, all those things that 3Ds, all those typical fertilizer are right now incorporated in this version. And as I said, in the next version that is coming up, we are writing one for the USDA in Washington they're going to use for trading, is going to allow you to take your basket, and you say, well, I have corn, you pick it up. And next year I want to have soybean, you pick it up. And you say, well, I want a cover crop between these two, you pick it up. And all those things, and then just say, you go to cashier, I want to pay. And then automatically creates a management file according to what you select. And allow you to go and change it. So you don't have to be, so right now we have to say corn, soybean, wheat, corn, soybean, blah, 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 blah. This way you just put 5 crops that major here, and then use combination of it is what you select in your basket. Well, if you do everything correctly, all this green light shows up that you're successful, so you're ready to go. And once you finish running them by putting it here, you will have the dates coming up and says you completely successful your runs. Now, one of the things is going to be economic here very soon. You push the economic after that is going to evaluate your BMPs. What is the cost and benefit to what that BMP was? We need some research and funding here to add that to local here. We can't just go ahead and go those without knowing information from the farmers. And once you're done, it's going to give you 2 tables, or 3 actually. You're going to say what is your total nitrogen, the form of it came in from tile system and so on, the phosphorus, how much came from tile, how much surface, how much with the sediment, flow, and then it's going to be giving you crop yields. That's where we really pay attention to make sure what your management you do, it doesn't destroy your crop yield, because that's where you are after the money, after all. But at the same time, it sort of gives you the view of the environment and your economic pocketbook at the same time. We show a little bit, and then you can see graphically for monthly and say, well, this is the time of the year the average monthly value shows my nitrogen or phosphorus picked up. So you can get for every one of those. So what I have to do, I have to pay attention that period of the year so stop these losses. So that's for the monthly. So the annual gives you the last 10 years. show you sort of kind of correlation with the rainfall in the area. As I said, this is most for Kevin and Rem and those who want to do research. You get to have, from what you selected in the field, the databases for Apex run. So it's kind of interface. They have not been introduced yet. A lot of people want to have this interface that we are providing them now. And then let's go back to this current enhancement. So working with the colleague at the USDA to create a version of NTT for trading program, which I was talking about. Incorporation of forestry management practices, we need to do that. A lot of significant land use in the United States and around the world are forest land. Assist international users to adopt NTT, as I said, South America, Puerto Rico. I was traveling there when I came back, when I got my expenses, they told me Puerto Rico is out of country. No. So anyway, there are different languages that is there. Completion of economic FEM into this. We have a version, but we are just limited data. We're just evaluating it right now. Let me just go ahead and give you the future and what kind of usage of this you can do at in the field, and farm, and watershed. Well, let me just tell you this. We have a program called CEOT, Comprehensive Economic and Environmental Optimization Tool, that has the watershed SWOT in it. Apex is the one that runs the fields, and the FEM, which is both of them have to have for economic. Apex is the one that going to only this, and this SWOT is there. So because SWOT is a technical, has a GIS in expertise, there's so many things to deal with, we kind of analogy looks like a desktop. But because anybody can use this as your smartphone, you always get to it. That's basically analogy that NTT is that way. So here is a very significant. For my colleague that are in the research, we always have eliminated something here in this graph. And this is because we never look at economic. This is economic cost, and this is going to be benefits, correct? We don't look. All we do in all the ASABE meetings, Saltwater Conservation Society meetings, all those places we go, we talk about parts per million, and we talk about loading, pounds per acre, but we forget the major users are the ones that want to see this, economically, what's going to happen. So if you look at it, this is from Upper Macocota in Iowa scenarios. They all fall in there. So you have a sediment problem here, and I'll show you one for nitrogen. So you say, well, I put all these BMPs here. This is a kind of nutrient management. It doesn't make any difference. But when I go here, I see I can do no-till and contours and so on. So I have a quiz for you today. If I wanted to reduce about 30% sediment, which scenario I should use? Raise your hand and tell me. Wrong? Yeah, go ahead. No-till is about that, but I would use the contours. Correct? Contours a little bit more reduction. You see that 30%? But the cost is the lowest. Right? This is what the producer want to know. This what is very important. But when we go to the meeting, we eliminate this, we all talk about this. So in the meeting, we would say take the terraces because it's going to give you the confidence, 60% reduction over twice that what 30% is. But that's not going to buy it because the cost is so much to it, correct? Unless you have to, unless you're in the very, very high hills in the mountainside. You got to do it. So that's very important. That's why we add into NTT coming up soon. Now, I'll show you the other one. And this is one from nitrogen. Now, which one of those? See, those doesn't make that much difference. But if I want to get 20% reduction, which one I take? Everybody knows, but nobody wants to say anything. End rate, because that means they split the application and credit for manure to apply. That's what they did. So because it makes more money, it goes to my pocket without even going to the field, without taking my tractor and apply too much and so on. So there's a 4 coordinate to this. This is the one is the worst, because not only you're adding to the environment, also you're costing for itself money. And somebody says, give me one example. I give you example. We applied 3 times the rate of phosphorus we should apply in the field, as Kevin was mentioning. So we pay for it, correct? It's not free. But we also add into the environment a lot of phosphorus, correct? So a lot of producers, I don't know, you go to south, to country, they don't have knowledge, it gets worse. They are in this, we need to bring them to this. From this coordinate to this coordinate. That's why the field research that Kevin and Rem and others doing, and the NTT is bought to help you, to bring you from that coordinate to this coordinate. So here's the economic that output you will see is going to tell you the balance sheets of that specific BMP, what is cost the benefits. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not an economist. Dr. Osei, our economist, the author of FEM, that he will talk about that when it's ready. So let me just go on some of the scenarios that we've done. So if it does work well, if it is well calibrated, it's a wonderful package, so it can help you a lot. So let's just look at it, see what it can do for us. This is a farm that I think we have quite a few farms that Kevin and Rem are working on here. I took one of those farms, 22, I don't even know where exactly it is, but I know it's in Iowa, it's the Erie County. I know that. So I took that farm and I do some simulation on it. So here what we see. This is a no-till, and that shows you have about, 80 bushels soybean. It's very optimistic. Again, these are 15 years average. There could be 1 year was very good and brought the records up. About 90 bushels of corn, but typical application that Rem and Kevin gave me. Now, if you do not have this semi-poor soil, this is basically poor and to semi-poor. If you do not have a tile system, your yield's going to damage. That means you need to have a tile system in there, as Kevin was mentioning it, correct? And therefore, if that you don't have it, your sediments goes up from significant. So it's really not to use that field for cropping system. Again, this is something come from survey, but you need to know yourself if that's the case. And if you do have very poor soil, saturated all the time, the model shows you got nothing. You're just damaging the environment by doing any tillage practices, whatever it is. You're just not doing any good. So that shows you the sensitivity of the tile system in this. This is the only version of Apex that does this, and it's kind of my stuff that I put in there. I have not published yet. So that shows you, typical models don't show the yields damaged because of tile system or not. But in this entity shows. The second scenario we're talking about, if you have, then you have a very good scenario here. You have, this soil has about 200 parts per million P concentration on this 8-inch, correct? So if you do not apply any, half of application of what you do, of what typically you do, I think is about 40, 50. So you're going to get the yield, no change in the yield very much. So you didn't have to. So from that coordinate, I'm bringing you to that fourth coordinate. So at the same time, look at how much you help environment from 1.52 to bring 1 point. It's about 14% reduction because you didn't apply as much in the phosphorus loss, which is mostly both in the surface and subsurface. This is the lateral. Again, the reason it's so high is because from the drain, because the 200 parts per million. And Rem is going to show you, after me, there is a field that is probably 0.2 because it's not as much of a 60 parts per million, correct? So the model is sensitive to what you put as soil P there. And then also the nitrogen was reduced some. And when you have no P, that says no. You need some for that field. So yield went down, and the erosion went up, and the nitrogen losses went up. Why nitrogen losses went up? It has to do with P. Why nitrogen losses went up? Pay attention to the crop yield. When the crop yield is lower, residue is going to be less. So your ground protection is going to be less. So your erosion goes up. Therefore, your runoff and your sediment losses of nitrogen goes up. So the model is sensitive to that. So this is a very interesting. Let's say we talk about injection, not incorporation, injection. So if you look at that, we have a no-till. Basically, we lose even some because of the runoff, that rain wash out some of those nutrients you apply as a no-till. What if you inject it? Your yield goes up a little bit, and your losses of phosphorus goes from 152 to 146. So you did some saving in this. Again, this is not a model. Don't look at this model that says, well, applies all the watershed, all information I know doesn't match, whatever it is. Every farm is different from the next farm. This might be, directionally, I think is correct, but it could be more reduction in another type of soils than in this farm. Or different slope. We are talking about very flat slope in this field. So, okay, another scenario, I'll just have two more and that's about it. When you have, in this case, we have no-till and the cover crop. Kevin very much was pro it. Look at that. The nitrogen is about 31% reduction. Phosphorus, 66% if you do cover crop. Somebody was saying, well, Kevin, when you do the water, it should be coming down. I give him the right. It's just 1 year data. And phosphorus is very persistent. Does not go away, sometimes up to 30 years. So what it is, by cover crop, the crop I have here is wheat. Took the phosphorus from the ground instead of going to the tile. So it's reduced that significantly. And also, when we did this, the crop was lower because some of this nitrogen went to wheat. But what if I incorporate now? So you can do multiple scenarios. You don't have to one at a time. You can combine some scenarios. And then it says, well, if you do that, your crop is going to go up significantly on the corn side because, and look at the total P from 128 to 161. So you get about 20% reduction. 16% reduction in nitrogen and about 20% in that. So that gives you the good idea, not only inject it, also cover crop it, both of them. Okay, and I'm done with this, and there's a lot of scenarios. You saw the list of items you can do. Once you get the power, and we cannot do again without having the field. Kevin's work is so significant to make sure it's calibrated, and Rem's work is to make sure that the information that comes from this university and the laboratory makes sense and applied in a different area. So once you get this calibrated, validated, I think is a great tool to play a game with it. It's just it's a very, very powerful program, sorry. Any questions so far?
I tried to download it, it's not very user-friendly.
Download it on your telephone? Oh, in the telephone, the problem with the telephone is that you cannot draw a line because the telephone does not have that program capability to draw. You can use a tablet and use the tablet, and then I'll be there for you after this meeting. If there's any problem, we can work it out. Yes?
On the outputs, the total feed looks like the total dissolved feed. Is that correct? There's the organic and then the...
Organic is attached to the sediments, come from the erosion, and anything goes soluble, but it's a kind of sort of what Kevin gets on the tile system. It's mostly of them, I think Kevin can speak of that, but most of the tile system is very clear water, so it's not much sediment in it. It's kind of dissolved phosphorus.
So does it account for the particulate lost in soil? I guess I'm a little confused.
The particulate is just on the surface. with erosion.
So is this only tidal loss that we're looking at?
No, no, we were looking at, we are talking about organic N, which is the a particular P you're talking about with sediment, and the runoff, that's soluble, P2O4, and the same thing is going to be on the tile drain. I'm sorry, this is the nitrogen, this is the phosphorus. So this is with the organic P. See, you don't have much erosion, so it's very low. It's a very flat slope.
Your organic P would be particulate.
Particular P, sorry. Yeah. And the rest is the solid. Any other question?
So you mentioned this is calibrated using Kevin Keene's data, correct? But it also feeds the bigger Apex data set. But I mean, what are all the data Kevin's, or is it
No.
the full Apex data set that's calibrated with Kevin?
We get the database. The weather file in this is from what weather file we have. The soil information is from where our site with NRCS soil database. The management is what Kevin has observed from the producer and talked to Rem, and Rem gave it to me. What we are all, the only thing we do, those numbers that is here is calibrated, the model runs. It's nothing to do with Kevin. But what we do, we compare what Kevin gets to make sure the calibration, there is about 400, 500 parameters in this that I have to work on to make sure those parameters matches to what Kevin gives us as a baseline. Any other questions? Good.